So here we go. Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jeff Feynman with Christina Chambreau, Gail Pope, here to discuss holistic and homeopathic pet care. Answer your questions. I'm Christina, licensed veterinarian. Gail is the founder of the Bright Haven Shelter, a wonderful shelter for geriatric and ailing pets in California. And we are focusing on homeopathy and the healing of the body and getting you to know what your holistic and homeopathic options are for pet care. And welcome everyone.
Welcome.
So
looks like we have a few there. Few people are signing on, so that's good.
Yeah, looks like we've got a couple of people coming, despite the fact that Lab seems to have gotten rid of the link, but anyway, so here we are. So anything, Gail or Christina, that you want to mention from the past week and 2 weeks? Anything that's going on, any pressing issues, anything exciting in your lives that you want to share? Or anyone in the audience?
Nothing really from me.
It just reminds me, seeing you, Gail, reminds me I've got to get back to you on the memorial in the AHVMA conference.
Excellent. So. Yeah, I don't think it's urgent, of course. And every day is a busy day, right?
Well, I was in Florida for a week, so that was both fun and doing things with my daughter. So I was moving her to Florida, so she's living there now.
Oh, my goodness. Whereabouts in Florida?
Cape Canaveral, next to Cocoa Beach. Not bad.
Delightful. Wow. Oh, that's beautiful.
Yep.
So
very nice.
Jeff, what have you got that's new this week?
The most new and exciting thing is that we've started getting almost daily visits from a barred owl. So she sits about 5 feet from our window while we're eating breakfast, and she's just looking and hunting and exhibiting patience and perseverance in her hunt for chipmunks and other prey organisms and her breakfast. And of course, it reminds me of how important patience and perseverance is when we're dealing with our animals, with ourselves, and with just symptoms in general. Basically, if we're looking for a quick fix, then we are almost always going to end up at a lower level of health. We may actually help the symptom in the short run and lower or decrease the level of health in the longer run. Christina, can you think offhand of any examples that you might have had clinically where somebody suppressed something or treated something to get rid of a symptom, but then it ended up being worse in the long run?
Actually, it's amazing. In my 35 years of practicing, I rarely had that happen. One I can think of is a little Shih Tzu who was biting at feet in the house. And it was a house where multiple people lived. And so this was not very, So this was not very well appreciated, biting at ankles. And we treated, and the remedy was definitely a rabies miasm remedy. I can't remember if it was Lysin or Lachesis. And then when the rabies vaccine was given, the same symptoms recurred, and another dose of the remedy and the symptoms went away. But I'm not even sure I'd call that. I guess that is suppression, it's returned, but more it's just weakening of the vital force.
Can you tell?
So I don't have any.
Can you tell us a bit, since you brought it up, can you tell us about what you mean by the rabies miasm?
So a miasm was what Hahnemann when Hahnemann was first treating, he was treating people who came in with a various numbers of illnesses. They'd come in with gout, they'd come in with infertility, they'd come in with skin problems. And he was looking at the whole person in terms of, he wasn't treating gout, he was treating the person with gout who had thirst for small sips of water and craved heat except when they had a headache and wanted cold air blowing on them, so he gave arsenicum and it cured the gout. But he still was treating, his impetus for treating was sort of this acute problem. And then over time, he noticed that these same people would come back with the same problem down the line or other ailments down the line. And he thought, well, maybe these are just the peaks of an iceberg. And there's an underlying weakness that's causing this person to have these repeated illnesses as opposed to other people. And in his careful looking, he attributed them to three different sort of this underlying, hidden under the sea, shared by a lot of people condition, which he then called a miasm, which if you think of in the swamp, they talk about miasms being this fog that just creeps everywhere and creeps in and among the plants and the people and the animals. So that's the idea behind miasm. So he had three: syphilitic, psychotic, and psoric miasms. So when as time went on, people would notice that some people or animals would again share. There was like this sort of underlying tendency. So we talk about the cancer miasm or the tubercular miasm. And so in animals, some people, although most of us stick with the three as being a miasm, we'll still talk about the rabies miasm. And it's just a set of symptoms that often appear or get exacerbated after rabies vaccinations or in animals that, and again, it's only animals that are sensitive because it depends on each animal.
And that
anything more, Jeff? Add in.
Great general recap of the miasms, which again I also look at as more of a tendency to overfunction, hyperfunction, underfunction, or basically a twisted function of the syphilitic miasm. But Kate pointed out that the rabies miasm, which is what brought this up originally, the rabies miasm is becoming more and more clinically evident in that I think more and more people are beginning to recognize that a lot of the anxieties and physical symptoms and behavioral symptoms are indeed related to rabies vaccination. And in fact, you can actually, and this is going to add another twist to the story, you can actually suffer from the rabies miasm as an inherited miasm. So actually, if your pet did not receive a rabies vaccine, you still can have that rabies miasm taint or that tendency from the mom or the dad or elsewhere in the genetic line. But going back to my question to you, Christina, about patience and perseverance and symptom suppression and getting rid of the immediate problem, I guess what always jumps out to me as most prominent is the testimonial, the letter I've got on my board downstairs from somebody their young dog had just a little tumor on his eyelid. Wasn't bothering him, wasn't growing, wasn't doing anything, but they decided that they're going to have it removed. And as we all know, removal of a local symptom, whether it's a tumor or hot spot or anything on the skin, is a form of suppression. So that did indeed get rid of
so true
the symptom. So in the short term, in the short run, that was gone. A week later, the dog was paralyzed. Could not walk, could not walk.
Wow.
And of course, conventionally, there couldn't be any correlation. I mean, he recovered well from anesthesia, surgery, sight looked fine, the tumor was benign. But of course, we know homeopathically that what was done was the symptom in the short run was addressed, whether it's removal of the symptom by surgery or a topical ointment or an antibiotic. And then in the longer run, the bigger picture of health, the level of health, in this case, the dog's ability to walk, was actually what directly affected. And how do we know that it was a direct cause and effect in this case? Well, first of all, it's worked out fully, and there was no cause for the paralysis. And secondly, the individual, the dog, was given a homeopathic medicine directed at the totality of the dog, which means that all the symptoms were looked at, including the removal of the tumor, and within a week, the dog was walking again and back to normal. So it's a great ending and a great story, and I'm sure that's why, I've got a letter from the person downstairs documenting it. But, it really, really hits home that, all of our short-term consequences can have short-term actions, can have longer-term consequences, and to be careful.
And again, it depends. So we also, Jeff, I'm sure you and I both have many dogs that have had little tumors removed and have had no dire consequences afterwards, that we've been treating constitutionally, just like many animals that I'm treating. They get their rabies vaccine and there's no problem at all afterwards. Then you have the ones like the asthma cat I treated that, he never was quite well, but never seemed to have a reaction, even from my point of view, to vaccines until he was 5 years old. And then he turned him into a profound asthmatic cat. So we like to avoid things that are unnecessary. I think that's the most important thing. And then we can use that case as an example that every time you make a decision to do anything, the Indians say that anytime you're making a decision, look 7 generations down to see what's going to be the impact on your decision 7 generations down. Hawaiians, the Kanaka Maoli, the native Hawaiians, as they were building a temple out of stone, they would ask the permission of each stone if it was willing to be part of the temple before they picked it up, because they were looking at the long-term consequences of picking up that one stone. And if the stone said no, they left it. And if the stone said yes, it became very light and easy to transport. So it is important to know that anything we do, we don't know the consequences, and they may be fine. And so if you're weighing the risk of having your dog end up in quarantine because you didn't do the rabies vaccine versus the rabies miasm, you're going to have to make a choice. And many, 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 many animals do fine on an occasional vaccine. One vaccine every 3 years, many do fine. But some die right after getting that rabies vaccine or right after getting the December vaccine. But that doesn't mean that nobody should get them. So it really is a matter of every animal is different. But the important thing, as Jeff said, is if there's a little tumor and it's not causing a problem, don't take it off. Even anesthesia carefully given can cause death and can cause problems in an occasional animal. When I was a new veterinarian, I was working for another vet, and a young dog, 9 months old, 10 a year, came in with a cut on his head. Wasn't very long, but it was long enough and gaping enough on the head that we needed to sew it up. So I asked my boss if he wanted me to use gas anesthesia to mask them down And when you do that with a dog, it's very, very safe, and they wake up right away because it's not in their bloodstream so much. And do it that night, or should we wait until the next morning? And we weren't that busy, so he could see the appointments and told me to go ahead and do the dog. Within a minute of starting to mask down the dog with the anesthesia, he died. And, you know, the owner was like going to come after us with a shotgun. Luckily, my boss was very good speaking with him, but my boss actually was careful enough to bring in a pathologist from the university the next day to do a necropsy. In retrospect, it could have been something like a concussion, a brain injury, even though the dog was acting completely normal. But the pathologist came up with nothing and said it's an idiosyncratic reaction to anesthesia. So sometimes stuff just happens. But it is important to, again, just think about things before you do them, about everything you do. When you're walking into a store, think about when you're buying this product, what are the consequences to the environment? What are the consequences to your pet? What are the consequences to you? And then do what you do.
I would love you to go into a little bit further, Christina, is the answer to the other side of the coin of why it is that we can take off little tumors or give vaccinations or do anything else that is manipulative of symptoms. Why can we do that most of the time? You're not allowed to. No.
It depends on the individual. Each animal, I know, each animal has a unique vital force, and we've talked about that before. Aha, we see my fingers coming up again. So the shape of each vital force is different, and everybody has susceptibilities, and some are susceptible to a vaccine. Other vital forces are susceptible to drugs, but not vaccines. Other vital forces are susceptible to diet. Why can we feed some dogs and cats crappy food? There's a woman running a behavior listserv for decades out there for cats. And I think it might even be homeopathic, I'm not sure. But it's a holistically oriented behavior for cats. And she firmly believes that cats are insect eaters and they nibble food and they must have food available all the time. So she has dry food free choice for her cats. Her cats routinely live to be 20 to 25. All of her cats. So, it's like the cats that choose to come to her are choosing dry food. They're ones that their susceptibility is not to dry food. They're okay with it. They don't develop the kidney disease from it. So it literally is the vital force you're born with, and it's the health of the vital force you're born with. So if you have a vital force that has a sensitivity, let's do it like this, a sensitivity to vaccines, and you're really, really healthy, it's like you're so full that sensitivity for vaccines is barely there. But as you get sicker and more emaciated and more just less vital, that sensitivity gets more and more and more sensitive. So then it's easier to get triggered. So this cat was sensitive to vaccines, but was more or less healthy. By age 5, the cat had gotten more sensitive, and the veterinarian made a big, big, big boo-boo and gave a feline infectious peritonitis vaccine to an indoor cat owned by an 80-year-old man. No excuse for doing that. And so the combination of maybe being weaker and being given something that was just worthless to him, not needed for him, and the cat had a...
And I
So it has to do with the vital force and the health of the vital force.
That's the level of health is basically what we're trying to preserve. Level of vitality, the energetic stability, the balance of the individual. And I absolutely love what Kate said just now. Do the best you can and understand that life is full of risk. But,
Right.
and that's true, I think, Kate, in general, but we can understand, how our life exists and how we can exist in a good plane or a better plane than we realize that we were able to exist in. And I have found the more I practice, I think the more I see that doctors, MDs, vets, other individuals to underplay how good we really can be. It's a myth that as you get older, you get thicker and more decrepit, and your life shrinks, and that's just the way it is. Certainly.
Actually, I listened to an Oprah does the Soul Sunday shows, and I listened to one the other day where she interviewed Christine Northrup. And Christine Northrup has recently written a book that I can't remember the title of, but the bottom line of it is aging is optional. We all get 1 year older every year, but there is no need to age. And I've been saying that since day one. Hang on one sec, guys.
Yep.
Have a good talk, Mort. My husband's getting ready to go to New Jersey. Tomorrow he's going to be giving a TEDx talk on ending stress, and it's going to be to high school students. So it's going to be talking to them about how you can build up your vital force, in essence, how you can, be healthier if you pay attention to these early warning signs that everybody calls stress, but really are individual problems. So he's just now getting on the road. So the point is, we don't need to age. Aging is a function of that we haven't discovered what we need to do for ourselves. When you think about it, we and our animals can do amazingly miraculous things. There's stories right and left about animals who have rescued people that they couldn't possibly lift or pull out, and they pull people out. Mothers who lift up cars, yogis who don't eat or drink for 2 or 3 months, 6 months, 8 months on a line and at a time. So, we don't, our bodies are miracles, absolute miracles, and we don't fully utilize them. But we keep trying. Those of us who are in the holistic field, we certainly keep working to stay as healthy as we can. And at the same time, I think it's really important, and we do keep saying this over and over again, it depends. Each animal is different. Each person is different. There's no one right answer. So you can feed a raw food diet, never vaccinate, never take off those little tumors, and your dog dies at age 3 or age 6. Or Gail brings in 3 cats with the same hyperthyroid condition, the same levels, the same apparent well-being or not well-being, and one of them dies after 6 months, and one of them lives for 5 years, and one of them lives for 10 years. And it's not that she's failed with the first one. It's that each of us has our span and has our time to be here and like that. So, but what Jeff said is key. We do our best. And our goal is to have the years pass until we're ready to go and stay in exactly the same condition that we are when we're maybe 1 or 2 years, once we're an adult.
And that certainly is achievable. What do they say? Getting older is mandatory, but feeling older is totally optional. And that's, I think that's what Oprah was talking about on her show. And certainly, we see it every day, people and pets with anxieties and other things that we've been told, well, they just deal with it. Those kind of just deal with it symptoms actually resolve when the level of health has internally improved. And Judy actually asked about a new anti-anxiety drug, which, Judy, I did just Google and I couldn't find anything under what I tried C Hope.
What was the anti-anxiety drug? I missed that
Yeah, she wrote.
The kidney one is the
Yeah,
Rubinol.
which is actually a rheum extract.
Yes, it's an herbal extract, but it has other herbs in it. So if I were going to be wanting to use that, I would work with a veterinarian or a person trained in herbs. You know, I'd work with an herbalist rather than getting a commercial product made by, I think, a pharmaceutical company that was just using extracts. I would tend to go with, you know, more the real thing and make sure it was organic and that it was sustainably sourced and stuff like that. But I wouldn't be against, I mean, if conventionally they're using Rubinol out there, I'm happy. That's a better one for the conventional vets to use than much else. So in that way, I'm happy.
Christina and Gail, do you guys remember back 10, 15 years ago before Nutramax brought Colchicine to market? You know, we were all using glucosamine and omega fish oils, and we were on the fringe. And now you're going to find that on the shelf, like the Rubinol or Colchicine or Dosquin or fish oils of various sorts. You're going to find that on the shelves of pretty much every veterinary practice.
And I'm glad for that in the veterinary practices, but in this group, I want to up the level and say, that's fine. It's good they're there, but rather than buying those, I'd like to see you go closer to the source so that you can be sure of the quality and how and the reliability and the sourcing of it.
So, Judy, would you do me a favor and go back and double check the spelling of that anti-anxiety drug? Because I would be curious to know, what that is, if it's anything that is actually going to be, employed commonly and really worthwhile for conventional use. I think that anxiety homeopathically, though, is addressed beautifully. My experience with pets that have anxieties and fears have been very good. And I'm wondering, Christina, Gail, if you guys have had any situations, any cases, any patients that have actually benefited from homeopathy when they were anxious or fearful.
Boy, that Gail, you have a ton of those.
Well, yeah, I was just thinking about that. It's an interesting question. I couldn't honestly say that I could think of one instance where that was what we treated. However, there are many instances of that being a part of the whole picture of the person or the being, like. So absolutely, yes, we've seen animals who have come to us, cats particularly, who've come from a feral background, who are really nervous, anxious, shy, under the bed. And literally over time, again, nothing happens quickly, but over time, they gradually change and they lose, maybe not completely, but they gradually become family girls or boys, and the picture changes. So absolutely.
And Gail, how much would you say, are there cases where you feel that it was the homeopathy that really turned the anxiety around, or more your special brand of TLC?
Can I hang up your sign? Thank you. It's always a mix. Love, as you know, we have our love sandwich menu, and love is one of the most important components. Without love, healing is difficult to accomplish. And so it's always a mix. You can never really tell how much is just feeling comfortable with the being. And again, it's homeopathy, natural healing takes time, doesn't happen overnight. And the love filtering through it, oh, hello, my darling. So agreeing with me. But but yeah, I think it does depend. It depends on the situation and the beings involved.
Yeah. Well, I've definitely seen, we don't talk a lot about combinations, but for instance, Stephen Blake, who's a wonderful practitioner, originally had a very, very, very large practice in San Diego area. And he would make up a dropper bottle that had aconite, rescue remedy, and one or two other things in it. And he would have animals that were anxious take this anytime they came into the clinic. And it would immediately, there'd be 100% change in some of the animals. Rescue remedy by itself, the combination Bach essence with 5 emergency Bach flowers in it. I've had that take a cat who was going to scream all the way for an hour to come to me, because that's what the cat had always done in the past. And as they gave rescue remedy, the cat slept the whole way, only waking up every 10 minutes to scream once. They gave the rescue remedy and would go right back to sleep or quiet right down. And with homeopathy, it's been more, I definitely have had cases where anxiety seemed to be maybe the only symptom, the only apparent symptom. And remedies would definitely, a homeopathic remedy, if I hit the right one, would turn it around completely.
You just reminded me when we, one of our relocations of the sanctuary, and it may have been you actually that said, because we were very well into using classical veterinary homeopathy, and I was very classical in my approach. And when we were moving, maybe you or one of my other vets suggested making a mix, and it was basically rescue remedy, and it had, I think, 2 other homeopathics, and I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that's it. And we sprayed it. We used it in, we had 2 big like RVs that we redesigned inside for the animals. And it was amazing, the response of the animals to that. As you said, but I just came back to it, I'd forgotten all about it. We were so worried that it would just be the most awful journey, and everybody calmed down. Everybody was fine. So, yeah, That's amazing, isn't it?
Another anxiety example, there's a man, and I don't agree with this, but there's I believe, Swedish veterinarian who has been doing online homeopathic consulting, which is fine, but he tends to he does one session and prescribes the next 3 remedies. He says, give this remedy now, and then in 3 weeks, give this one, and then in a month, give this one. And I think every remedy should be evaluated for its individual effect on the animal. But one thing he does that I thought about it, and it actually makes good sense, so I've suggested it to some shelters to try, is that a lot of animals who come in are fearful, but they're not really anxious. It's like they hurt and they don't want to be touched, or their mind has been injured and hurt. And so arnica is actually better than aconite for them. And so when you are working in a shelter situation, unlike yours, but in the average one where they are looking for a sort of prescription, if this happens, give this, if the animal is acting really, then it's aconite. But if they're just sort of, then arnica, or try aconite, it doesn't do anything, then try arnica. So you don't think about trauma to the mind. But many rescued animals definitely have trauma to the mind. And so arnica could be very good for that.
Yeah, and that's a great suggestion. I just wish arnica was employed more and more, because I think that whether it's injury, physical injury, or mental injury, that arnica can really turn around and make believers of a lot of people that don't understand homeopathy and energetic medicine in general. Judy was talking about, referring back to anxiety, she's talking about Thyleo, which is a gel, a liquid that you give by syringe for dogs that have noise phobias and separation anxieties. And frankly, Judy, it sounds like rescue remedy. It sounds like Merck. Yeah, Merck is basically trying to trying to capitalize on the rescue remedy market. You give this basically in what might ever be an anxiety-provoking situation. So I would say rescue remedy first. Arnica is a great suggestion. Aconite, any of those things are going to likely work as well as the Sileo. I think Gail had a fantastic point that she couldn't think of any particular individual where the anxiety was the main focus of the disease, and anxiety per se was not being treated. And that is exactly what we've been talking about for all these months and practicing for decades, that we're not treating the anxiety. We're treating an individual whose level of health is affected by, and quality of life is affected by, anxiety or fear of loud noises, or inability to calm down in a certain situation, or other physical problems. And when we look at the totality of all the symptoms, treat them homeopathically, increase the overall level of health, then almost always the anxiety is going to improve. The other symptoms are going to improve. They may not go away, and the main reason that you came in may still be something we need to work on, homeopathically or otherwise. But I personally start every consultation with people make a laundry list of every physical, mental, and emotional problem that their animal has ever had, because we are we're treating all those things. And that's what we mean by the totality of symptoms.
Now, the side effects of the Sileo, the medicine is dexmedetomidine. Yep. And it's the most frequently observed adverse events included hypotension, hypertension, nausea, bradycardia, fever, vomiting, hypoxia, tachycardia, and anemia. This was because they were using it for ICU sedation, and said it shouldn't be used more than 24 hours. That was for use in people, of course. It's being marketed not so much for anxiety per se, but it's being marketed for noise anxiety, for thunderstorm anxiety. So that's why they're pushing it, because that's such a big thing. We really conventionally haven't had much. I mean, acepromazine, I guess, that does hate me, but I think that's about all we've had for thunderstorm stuff. And it clearly often doesn't work. But Jeff is so right that, and Gail, it's like we don't usually treat just anxiety. We're treating multiple things. Even with the thunderstorm, the rubrics in the repertory, in the homeopathic repertory, you have to be careful in evaluating the animal. Somebody says, my dog is afraid of thunderstorms, or my dog is afraid of fireworks. And you would then think to go to mind, fear, fireworks, or mind, fear, thunderstorms, or mind, fear, noises. But it may not be that they're afraid of them. They actually might be sensitive to the noise, in which case, rather than going and hiding under the bed, like you plugging your ears, they might tend to pace and get, hyperactive. And so that would be more being sensitive to the noise. Or it could be a dog who actually has a high protective state and thinks that this is something to be protected against, and they're out on the porch barking. So you have to, even with something as simple, apparently as simple as thunderstorm fears, you have to really evaluate what is it that's going on. And that actually explains why sometimes we're not successful with the remedies. It's because we've misevaluated what's going on. Like we may misevaluate in a person or an animal with a skin rash. We may think it's itchy when really it's causing prickling sensation instead of being itchy, so you have to be pretty careful.
Yep.
It's interesting here to have a dog that was a gun dog, not afraid of gunfire, but terrified of thunder and fireworks. So that goes to show that training, that almost anybody should be able to train their dog out of being afraid of thunderstorms and fireworks, because the dog was clearly trained to not be bothered by gun.
And conversely, I've had patients that had no fears of thunder or fireworks or gunshots, but they were terrified of feathers. I mean, if they just saw feathers on a sidewalk, they would freak out. And again,
Wow.
this actually has been several patients. But when it came to...
Did you find a rubric?
Yeah, we did, but it wasn't based on the feathers. Just like in one of Betty, Betty Schubert, Bravo's dog, one of her main symptoms was fear of balloons. But those fears, because as Christina just said, it's a slippery slope that we go on to try and figure out what they're actually thinking. Is it really a fear of feathers, or was it an aversion to a sensation of being brushed by something like a feather? Or,
did the feathers have a bad smell?
Exactly. We'll never know.
And that's, collecting symptoms and evaluating symptoms and collecting the modalities, what makes symptoms better and worse, is definitely the challenge for homeopathy. And I know Gail has become expert at testing for modalities. So, she'll offer a heating pad to an ill cat and watch, do they go on the heating pad or not go on the heating pad? And that's important for two reasons. One, it helps you figure out the modality of the symptom. And two, you've learned to offer something that gives them benefit, that makes them feel better.
I think,
or you offer ice cubes, or you offer like that.
You're bringing up one of the most important points here, Christina, which is something that I know you talk about all the time, and that's journaling, writing a file. Modalities are so simple. They're such fun. They're easy. However, how many times we do it here, and we still do it, and we couldn't be better trained at writing. Did you see Lily's stool? It was this, that, it was large, it was this color or that color. Oh gosh, yes, I saw that yesterday. Do we write it in the file? That is the thing, because when you have your appointment with your veterinarian, they want to know everything. What time of day was it? What color was it? What was the texture? And if you don't write it down when it happens, you've got that memory, but you can never remember everything. So there are just so many little things that happen on a daily basis. So even having a scrap of paper in the kitchen or somewhere just to jot things down, like when you wake up in the morning and something's happened overnight or in the night, put a pad of paper in the bathroom, and while you're thinking you get up in the middle of the night and think, oh my gosh, I just heard so-and-so throw up. She threw up a fur ball. Let me just jot that down. What time is it? 3:30. Okay. That's the things that we miss that can be so important to create a pattern for the veterinarian, I think.
Now, when I wrote the journal, I'm drawing a blank. A wonderful animal intuitive, Marlene Sandler, said to me, as I was talking to her about my journal and the ideas behind it, she said, now it's really important that you have people write in pretty colors all of the wonderful things that are happening to their animals. Because when what you're doing is focusing just on the negative, you're putting too much attention on the negative. And with my mobility issues, I've been journaling, and I keep experimenting with how to do this differently. So now what I'm doing is I'm taking a page and splitting it, and one side is all the positive, wonderful things that are happening. And then I make a note of the negative things. That seems to be, I don't know, I've just started doing that. But we do need, with our animals, to be doing something. Make sure when you're writing your symptom lists that you also write down the positive things.
What makes it better and what makes it worse?
Well, not that, no, but the happy things that are happening with that animal, because what you focus on is what you get. So you don't want to focus just on the negative symptoms. Now, Gail, of course, she's recording the negative symptoms, but she's also so focused on the TLC and the love that's the counterbalance for you. And so you may have a dog that you do stuff with all the time. You're doing 5 times a day. You're doing agility work and you're having fun and you're focusing on the positive. And so then writing the negative symptoms isn't a big deal. But a lot of people have more of a casual relationship with their children and their animals and their spouses. So they may need to focus on writing the good down as well.
Well, don't you think that, when you're working with a vet and you've got your animal here and you're working through different appointments and you're looking for different things, that it almost becomes a drug, because once you see a remedy response, hopefully that's a good thing you've seen. And so in your mind, you are positive at that point because you're now looking to see that good thing being better, or is there another good thing? And when you do see a good thing, it gets exciting. So I think once you get used to it, you do create a kind of an ebb and flow and a balance. Of course, you're going to notice something that's getting worse, like dehydration or something. But at the same time, wow, she's eating really well. And, she's enjoying her life. Wow, she's out in the garden trying to catch a bird today. So I think it's.
And I think that's good to write it down in pretty colors or to focus on it in your mind even.
That's a really nice idea.
It is a great idea, and I think Kate had a great idea as well, as about having a pit-up board with colors and listing all your symptoms in various different areas on the board. But Christina, I do have to say, I don't agree with characterizing a symptom as positive or negative. All symptoms are expressions of the body. They're all equally important. Some may be symptoms that we want to see, and others may be symptoms that we prefer not to see as often, but all of them, and in fact, often the ones we don't want to see are the most important and often the happiest symptoms, because they're the ones that tell us what to do. I mean,
that's true. I mean, if we could hold on to that, I say that to myself every time I get a sharp stinging pain in my leg, that this is just an illusion and this is just a symptom. That's all. But instead I go, ah! And it's challenging. Or the person whose, cat is having diarrhea all over the house, or, watching an animal. It's challenging. I totally agree with you, Jeff. I personally find it more challenging to in the moment always see symptoms as that. But you are so right. Symptoms are not good or bad. They are just what they are. They're just the body expressing what it needs.
As Kate just said, symptoms are just expressions of the body trying to tell us what's going on, and that's exactly what they are. And that's why I love our visits from the owl every day, because they're reintroducing the importance of patience and perseverance and accepting things for what they are, and accepting your twisted ankle for what it is, and putting it into context, putting it into the bigger picture. I, for one, would rather be feeling great, but got a twisted ankle and I'm hobbling along on 3 legs, but I still have a good positive attitude, than be in a black depression and everything is negative, but I don't have any lameness. So I just wanted to, Gail, kind of broach the subject of modalities and the importance of modalities. I just want to quickly go over the 3 parts of the complete symptom, since we are again talking about symptoms. And there are 3 big things: the location of the symptom, the sensation that's felt in relation to the symptom, concomitants, or what goes along with the symptom. But then there's also what I think is the most important thing in our work with animals, which are the modalities. What makes them better and worse? And that is what characterizes the individual better than almost anything else that exists, as far as I can say. Are they better? Look at it, break it down, break everything down into individual symptoms. And are they better, as Christina mentioned, at a certain time of the day? Are they better after eating, better after drinking, worse after eating, worse after drinking, related to going inside, going outside? And that really relates to eye symptoms, ear symptoms. Vertigo symptoms is your animal falling over one way or the other way. Which way? Falling more to the left, falling more to the right, head tilt to the left, head tilt to the right, etc., etc. So yeah, I think that we may not get the sensations. We don't have the benefit of asking our patients, what they're feeling at this moment, but we definitely have the benefit of being able to examine the modalities and figure out by testing what is a symptom trying to tell us. Because as Kate pointed out, symptoms are the best clue to what's going on with the body. Modalities are a great way to figure out what the symptom is really trying to tell us. So I'll get off my soapbox. I was just reading one of the great homeopaths, von Bonninghausen, earlier today, and he had a section on the importance of symptoms, and that was the first thing he went to, was how the modalities are so critical. He goes into modalities for everything, and this is somebody who's healed the greatest problems that anyone ever had, and this was back in the 1800s. He goes into all the details on vertigo, on confusion of mind, on impairment of this, impairment of that, headaches, inside your head, outside your head. The list goes on and on and on. So I guess what I'm saying is that if one of the greatest homeopaths of all, one of the greatest healers of all times thinks that's important, I think that we should also focus on the importance of the modalities in our work with and life with our animals.
And as Jennifer said, sometimes it's hard to remember to record everything. It's not critical. If you're just paying attention, if you trust your subconscious, as long as you make a commitment to observe anything that's important. If your animals are basically healthy and doing fine, you're going to notice if something out of whack happens. But if you're working on a particular issue, then you're going to be on alert and you will think to do it. So if you're missing something, then you will catch it at some point. If you don't get it right away, it's going to show up whether we ask you or whether we read about somebody else. So, Jeff, you want to do, let's see, Gail, are you using Renavast in your CRF cats?
We haven't used it for a while. Over the years, we've become comfortable to support the renal function with 2 or 3 different products, and it depends. Different animals, we use different products, and most often it's because we've had something donated, in which case we use that one. But we do tend to stick to, I guess probably 3. We do use Aminovast, or Renovast. In fact, Renovast seems to be available in some places. We also use standard processed products and RX vitamin products. Those are the 3, for the most part, that we use for renal support.
And the Renovast was just renamed to Aminovast. They had some run-ins with the FDA. So yeah, the new products are all coming out as Aminovast. And Dexustelli, I loved before we went on. I actually went onto your website, and I'm wondering which one of you guys, because I didn't want to say hi so-and-so, but which one of you is here today? And do you carry Aminovast in your store? And I think I remember reading that you're in Carlsbad, California. And Carlsbad, of course, which is the home of Legoland, is
in the U.S. Legoland. The home is Denmark.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Legoland started in Denmark.
It's also Carlsbad. It's also what it's going to say, the home of the Academy of Veterinary Homeopathy. So that's where Kathy lives, in Carlsbad, California.
Okay.
Whenever you write to or call the office, you get Carlsbad. So hi, Margaret. Thank you. I know. I read your bio. It sounds great. I hope to someday get out there and visit.
Sounds fabulous.
Yeah, you're not that far from there.
A couple of hours, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, a little closer than Jeff and I.
Yes.
Yeah, and Margaret, yeah, I'm glad to see that you carry the Aminovast, and yes, I do recommend it. Use it for support during homeopathic treatment for most of my renal failure, dogs and cats, not just kitties, because I don't find it to be interfering with homeopathic treatment. As Cal mentioned, the RX renal supplements, the standard process supplements, good diet, subacute fluids, all these things are great support for the body. And they work along with homeopathy. So anyway, but yes, we only have a few minutes left. Becca, who is down at On the Wings Angels. Becca, you joined a little later after Christina gave a great tip that I would love you to maybe start using if you're not already, and that is when a dog comes into the rescue anxious and just doesn't want to go near you, try a dose of Arnica and see if that has an effect. You can do that even if we don't talk about the individual, and even if we're going to be jumping into treatment later on. And Christina, I don't know if you saw my email that we're both going to be traveling to the AVH conference in Austin, and I'm going to be traveling to a human conference in Montreal 2 Thursdays in a row. So I'm not sure. We'll be here next week for sure, but I'm not sure what we're going to be doing lab-wise for the next stuff, those 2 Thursdays. And again, we'll be here next Thursday at 1. What I was going to recommend strongly is that if all the people here, if you're not already either on my Facebook page, Christina's Facebook page, or on one of our email lists, that you really should get on it. I just sent a link for one of my lists, Christina. You can jump onto your list, I think, from your website, right?
Facebook or my website, which hopefully is working again. I'm going to put a different link to my website if ever the My Healthy Animals, which is so easy to remember, if ever that doesn't work, just go to my name, ChristinaChambreau.com.
Perfect.
That seems to get fixed faster.
Perfect.
So at least you have two ways to get into my website now.
Yep. And yeah, so I cannot, emphasize strongly enough, if you want to hear more about what Christina is doing, what I'm doing, where we're going to be blabbing, and Gail, hopefully you'll be there with us. We'll need to, 'cause as far as I can see, there is no way to really contact people on Blab directly. I guess we can.
Yeah, that's a
You
shame.
can use their
That's-
Twitter. You can use their Twitter handles to do that. But
do we have a list of everybody's Twitter handles?
yeah, I think their names are listed, and actually,
Okay, well, if we can, at least we can do that. You could do that.
Blab has flipped.
And then I have actually some good news. I'm going to be teaching a 2-day course in homeopathy in Maine, just outside of Portland. The second weekend in Maine. The second weekend in August in Maine. And then in October, date not quite set yet, I'll be in the Northern Virginia area. So if you want to do a 2-day course on homeopathy, it'll be, anybody getting my RSS feed will get that.
That's great. Well, thank you all for coming. Thank everyone who's here today.
Thank you,
Gail, thank you. Christina, thank you. Sorry that we didn't get to everyone's questions, but we'll hopefully see you soon. Looks like Gail, looks like Christina already left. So thank you. Have a great day.
Bye.
Okay.
See you all soon. Thank you for coming.
Thanks.